Thanks for joining, everyone. I'll keep the intro brief just because we're a bit over time already. We have a AP automation and payments solution trailed today with us. And yeah, they're a powerful solution. We've had many people jump on and they've been seeing great things with Trailed, and so we thought to bring them on to share with everyone through our webinar. Today we have Bonnie. She's the director of sales over at Trailed, and Adam Lesky, he's the VP of growth. I'll let you guys do a quick intro and then have you guys get the webinar started.
Yeah, hey everyone. It's great to see you guys all on here. As Andy said, I'm the director of sales here at Trailed. I'm going to keep it pretty brief, and I'll let kind of Adam take over and get into the product because I know you guys are wanting to see that. So Adam, I'll pass it to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Bonnie. So, hey, everyone. I've obviously been at Trailed since the very beginning. So, obviously built the integration deeply with Acumatica. I'm actually an ex-Acumatica employee. Spent years mapping and building this integration for Acumatica businesses. We've now got over 500 companies on Acumatica using Trailed to help, streamline, automate, and protect their accounts payable. Essentially, Trailed does everything from sort of invoice in all the way through to payment out in terms of the automation process. So we're going to be able to take you through a bit of a deep dive on what that looks like. But essentially, yeah, let me take you through a couple of slides and we'll get straight into the product and the presentation. So I guess the first thing I wanted to really cover here is, why Trailed versus, there's other, OCR-based solutions out there. One of the biggest thing is it's natively integrated into Acumatica. So it's an embedded module in Acumatica and it actually works. When I say it actually works, I mean, there's a lot more to it than standard OCR. Unfortunately, with technology today, with OCR in general, is extracting the data isn't enough. It doesn't actually mean anything. So what Trailed does is we've got 3 layers of automation that enable you to get to that 85% of processing cost and time saved. And those 3 layers are obviously the data extraction. You've got a classification engine that understands exactly what the data means, whether it's a numeric field, a date, a string, a character. It's learning and understanding and tabularizing that information. And then there's a machine learning model that sits on top of it to understand your suppliers, your business, how you interact with them. So these are the things that I'm going to be able to take you through and show you today. The other thing underlying all of that automation is security. So as we're automating that data, we're analyzing it and looking for anomalies. We're trying to protect the business from, mistakes and errors, whether it be mistakes and errors on the supplier side, or whether it be a stroking error. They put an extra 0 on internally from a finance perspective. We're trying to make sure that internal and external mistakes are flagged and picked up as early as possible, and that any potential fraud, insider, external, or social engineering is able to be detected before it hits your bottom line. The other really key thing is it's implemented efficiently. It's not an ERP implementation. We've had customers up and running within a couple of days, if not a week, in terms of processing and populating invoices through the platform and making payments. And the other thing is we're on the Acumatica price list. So, you order us directly through Andy and the team at the Answer Company in order to add this as a module to your existing Acumatica subscription, similar to buying a purchase order module or construction edition or whatever it might be. So in saying that, it can be quite complex. If you're dealing with multiple companies, multiple verticals, you're dealing with purchase orders, receipts, or subcontracts that you need to do matching and validation against. I can imagine all of you have these sorts of challenges and difficulties in your business, right? Even to the point of manually entering in AP invoices and trying to make sure they're coded to the right space. And, who do you need to send it to for review and approval if there's a purchase price variance or an anomaly or an issue? And then there comes to the whole, how do I reconcile these invoices to the payments that I've processed? How do I start to make that more efficient? But these are the sorts of things that I can imagine you and your team see every day. In saying that, this is a little bit of a table structure on the benefits of Trailed versus what else is out in their market, including what's in Acumatica as a core product. And the reason Acumatica has put us on the price list is because of the depth of the integration and capability in the product as to what it can do from an automation, a workflow, security, and a payments perspective. So this might be a little bit small for everyone to see, but this sort of is a feature matrix on what the product can do and what it's capable of versus what's out there in the general market as OCR tools. And then you've obviously got the platform being agnostic. So we have lots of people around the organizations we work with doing approvals on their mobile, seeing the risk information when they need it around what they need to do and how they need to manage it. And you'll see more of that as we get into the actual product itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through a live product demonstration of Trailed, so you get a bit of an insight as to what the product looks like. I'm just going to share my screen here. Bon, can you just tell me if you can see it okay, just given the technical issues we've been having? I just want to make sure I can share it accordingly. Okay. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yep.
We can see it.
Is that coming up now?
Yep.
Perfect. So guys, this is the trailed in tray. So this is the top of the funnel for everything to do with accounts payable. And the real benefit sense of the UI is all connected together. So, I'm behind the Acumatica login here. I can see my companies and branches that I've got structured. I could be jumping, this is my menu. I could be going from banking, doing journal entries or reconciliation through to the payable section. Now, if you're an Acumatica user, you'll know what it's like to enter bills into the bills and adjustment section, manually match them to purchase orders, receipts, subcontracts, try and validate them and get them ready for batching and payment. Essentially, Trailed has three components in the module. There's the supplier onboarding and verification, and there's the Trailed payments and processing. And the nice part about this is your finance team can have everything in one location, one system, and your approvers can have access in whatever device they like.
Oh, Adam, are you still there?
iPads, iPhones, Androids, whatever. I guess all of the invoices are going to come through directly via.
Adam?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
You kind of cut out a little bit. Maybe we'll turn off cameras just to bandwidth.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you now, but you've cut out a little bit. And your screen sharing is a little bit bumpy as well. We'll turn off cameras just for bandwidth, Adam.
Yeah, to do that. Sorry, guys. It's unusual. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, we can hear you better now.
Okay, you can hear me and see me better, hopefully.
We're just at the trailed screen. It's just kind of loading.
Yep.
On the in tray.
Okay, cool. So as I mentioned, this is the trailed in tray. So obviously connected with Acumatica and essentially modularized within Acumatica as well. This is where all of your invoices will come via email. So essentially the invoices can be directly connected to your AP mailbox and they can feed through directly via email. We can even set up multiple unique email addresses if they're coming from different companies or branches, or even read the particular address on the document to allocate it and populate it to a specific branch. The other option is you can actually drag and drop the invoices into the screen. Not many customers of ours upload them on demand. They generally come through via email. It's the most efficient and effective way to get the invoices into the platform. In this case, I'm going to go through and grab a couple of different examples, both PO and non-PO related invoices, because all invoice types, all AP documents can run directly into Trailed from an automation and extraction and classification perspective. So once the invoices have run through the system and they've been extracted and classified, they're going to land directly in the in tray and you're going to see them in a drafts queue. So if I just drill down into one of my invoices here, you're going to start to see all the data and information that's been populated off that document. So importantly here, I can actually have a pretty good insight and view as to the invoice on the left-hand side that's come through. And on the right-hand side, I've got all my data that's been extracted at a header level, a line level. It's got our activity log and tracking history here, and it's got my pre-populated coding like my GL allocations, my sub accounts, and who the invoice has been assigned to. If you're in construction or dealing with projects, it will even also allocate to your relevant project, task, and cost code. So I'm going to talk about each one of these components one by one, just to give you some insights into exactly how the system works. So as you can see, there's the invoice on the left-hand side, but on the right-hand side, it's extracted all the data. And this is actually a non-PO related invoice. So what it's done here is if I click on the invoice total, you should be able to see the big red box around the invoice total on the document. What the system's done is it's scanned every single component of this document. You should be able to see the big red box moving around from left to right to analyze what that information is and populate it correctly. Essentially, if that amount, the 227 or XGST amount, I can actually start to type this in and train the system and say, actually, I want to populate this based on the XGST amount and train it, and it'll populate that every single time moving forward when I receive my invoices from Bunnings. In this case, it's got it absolutely correct. And it has done that extraction and that classification for every single field. So whether it be the invoice number, whether it be the invoice date, the due date, it's populating that information directly off the invoice. Now, on the first invoice generally ever seen in the system, you're looking at an average of 90% accuracy in terms of the field population and the information being correctly allocated. By the second supplier invoice, because of that machine learning and any of your adjustments that you make, the system's going to get up to 99%, sort of 100% accuracy by the second document, because it's actually learning your business, how you work with your suppliers, and it's populating that moving forward. As it's automating this information, it's also cross-referencing the data and what's coming through. So for example, if this invoice came through from an unusual location, we're tracking where the email metadata has come from. We're also analyzing the fingerprint on the document and saying, are the bank details and information correct? So if this invoice did come from an unusual location, or the bank details were adjusted or compromised in some way, the system would actually flag that as a part of the risk algorithm. It's saying, hey, the payment details that have been detected on this invoice that's come through are actually different to what you've got stored in Acumatica for this particular supplier, and they're different to what you've historically transacted over a 12 to 18 month period. So, this is one of the risk factors that can go off, but essentially this is a bank details warning. We have many different components that go into the risk algorithm. It could be, an excess supplier charge. It could be an inactive government registration. We plumb into both government and non-government databases, inactive tax validation, duplicate invoices. What we're trying to do here is, as much as we're trying to automate the process around the AP automation, we also want to make sure that the information coming through is legitimate, correct, and it's not going to impact your bottom line if there's a mistake or a potentially fraudulent activity. So in this case, you can see, obviously the invoice has come in, it's extracted all the data and information, and it's populated everything correctly. Now, what the system's done here as well is it's read all of the line level detail directly off the document, because there's no purchase order receipt to match to, and it's coded the lines accordingly based on the allocation and the GL and sub account and project linked to that supplier in Acumatica. Now, if I needed to split the GL codes, I could totally go around here and say, you know what, one of these GL codes has got to go to freight expenses. The system is going to memorize that for Bunnings Trade, when I deal with Piping Premier Mini as a description or an item, it always goes to freight expenses. So it's going to look for that in the future and populate that information. In this case, I'm comfortable. I'm going to submit this invoice, and what's going to happen is it's going to go through our approval process, because it's a non-PO, like overhead expense. So essentially it needs to go through to be reviewed by someone in the organization, and we've got a workflow engine to deal with that. If I just go back into my drafts queue, you'll see these invoices that have landed, and it's going to prioritize the ordering of these invoices based on which invoices are PO related, which ones are matched to purchase receipts, which ones are subcontract related, and which ones haven't yet relate to a PO. So they're overhead expenses. The important part about this is it prioritizes your time as an AP person, telling you which ones are three-way matched, which ones are two-way matched, and which ones you need to pay more attention to. So if I just drill down into our PO related invoice now, so this is an example where it is going to do the integrated lookup between the purchase order in Acumatica, the items that have been receipted, or the subcontract, and it's going to match the invoice lines against that. So again, here you're going to see all the information that's been extracted and classified off the document. But in this case, it's pulled through a purchase order number off the invoice. And what it's done is it's matched each of these invoice lines on the document, the marketing services, the printing, the advertising. It's linked it through with each of the purchase order lines. Here's the purchase order that was raised. Here's the items that have been receipted. Here's the quantity, unit cost, and all of our coding off the PO as well, our GL code, our sub account, our projects, tasks, and cost codes. What's important about this is the system is analyzing the invoice and the purchase order receipt at a line level. So if there's an anomaly or a problem, it's going to flag it. If the invoice came through for, let's say, $3,200, it's going to instantly flag a $1,000 variance here between what was raised on the purchase order and what's come through on the invoice. Now, as I mentioned, it could be subcontract related if you're in construction. It could be if you're in distribution, landed cost related, if it's related to things like handling or material or freight. So Trailed has the ability to deal with all of those complex edge cases. In this case, our workflow engine can be set up to automatically route it back to the PO owner in Acumatica, the person that raised the purchase order. So this could be automatically routed back to Karen, for example. And I can even turn around here and I can put a comment into Karen and say, Karen, this is like an interactive, sort of like Facebook, massive PPV. Can you check this out as soon as possible? And essentially what's going to happen here is that's going to send an instant notification to Karen. She's going to become aware of this. We're going to be able to go back and forth in a digitized and tracked way on this variance and deal with it accordingly. Maybe it was a receipting issue. Maybe the invoice from the supplier is incorrect. We're going to be able to deal with that. In this case, though, the invoice has come through and it actually matches what we originally raised on the purchase order. If for whatever reason it didn't and it was partial receipting, which we see a lot where, an invoice comes through, but it relates, multiple invoices relate to a single PO. Essentially, Trailed's got a real-time lookup into Acumatica for all of those associated purchase order and receipt lines for that supplier. So you can see here what it's done is it's matched on the description, quantity, unit cost, and total on the invoice lines against the description, quantity, unit cost, and total on the purchase order lines. And it's checked that they've actually been receipted. But if I receive the first invoice for only go-to-market services, the system's smart enough to go, well, I'm not going to link in all three lines. I'm going to link in the first line that's related to marketing. The unit cost is the same and the total is the same. Great. And it's going to push that AP bill into Acumatica, but it's not going to close out the PO because you've got two remaining purchase order lines there. So the next invoice that comes through with the same PO number for printing and advertising, the system is going to link that through being the same supplier, same PO number, and it's going to link through the last remaining purchase order lines, and it's going to close out that purchase order, enabling that 2- or 3-way matching process. Awesome. In this case, I'm going to submit this invoice. And what you're going to see here is this is actually going to go through the auto approval process because it's analyzed it from a risk perspective. It said, you know what? It's a low risk invoice. It matches the purchase order, subcontract, or receipt. And we've sent it through. It's all good to be paid. Essentially, just to give you an essence of pace of this, essentially there's another invoice that's come through for a couple of laptops that we ordered. Again, it's extracted all the data and information and run the risk assessment on it. We can see here it's picked up the PO number off the document. It's linked it through to the relevant purchase orders and receipts. Here's our part number for the laptops that we ordered that have landed in inventory. You can see all of our coding, GL codes, sub-accounts, project classifications. Again, no variance. I can submit this. And again, it's going to run through that auto approval process because it's a low risk invoice and it's matched the purchase order, subcontract, or receipt. For any, complex invoices that have, we see this a lot where supplier invoices come through with multiple emails, multiple attachments on an email, or even multiple invoices inside a single PDF, like someone walks across to a scanner and they scan 25, 30 invoices into through their scanning device and it pushes into Trailed. Essentially, what the system can do here is it can run directly through our splitting engine and automatically split each of the invoices within that document. So even though it's been scanned through and come through to Trailed via email, it's identified that this is a multi-page document. Here's invoice 1, 2, and 3. You can see 3 separate invoices here from Avis that have come through in the same PDF file. And the reason it's saying it needs to split them is because they're completely separate documents. So the system's identified that and it split it for us as the invoices come into the system. So essentially, there's not really many invoices that the system can't deal with or manage accordingly. Again, from a security point of view, if the invoice comes in and it has already come in via email or been sent in by someone, the system is going to detect that. It's going to say, does it exist in Acumatica? Has it come into Trail before? If I try and submit this invoice, it's going to flag it as a problematic duplicate, which you can see here. I can trash it out of the tray and it's going to take me to the next invoice in my queue. So that's a bit about the automation side of it. Obviously, once the invoices have gone through that automation, matching, and validation process, if there's any anomalies or issues, it's going to run through our approval workflow, and the approvers are going to be able to see the invoices that are related to them. So essentially, whether they're high risk and problematic and need attention, and they're going to be able to see, how much they're for, when they're due, and they can drill down and they can simply review that invoice. So as an approver, I might be out on a construction site as a project manager. I can see the invoice in front of me. I can upload supporting documents like packing slips, whatever I might need, bill of lading, pay apps. I can see it's a low risk invoice from a security point of view. It's saying, it's well within my normal supplier trend and payment history. I can see the activity logs. Everything is documented, time-stamped, and auditable. I'm comfortable. I'm going to approve this invoice, and I'm going to get it exported directly into Acumatica. So then what it's going to do is it's going to take me to the next invoice in my queue. And this is an example of a high risk problematic invoice, right? This is absolutely one you want to pay attention to. And the reason the system has flagged it is because it's saying it's a high risk invoice because it's come in and it's nearly $3,000. And the supplier average in terms of payment transactions and history on a standard deviation over 12 months has never been greater than $2,100. So this is a material increase in excess supplier charges in combination with a payment details alert or a bank alert. I can see here a note from my colleague saying this seems to be an issue. I'm uncomfortable with this due to the excess charges. I'm going to reject this. I'm going to put it in a holding pattern. I either send it back to finance as due to pricing concerns. Maybe it's a quantity issue that was receipted incorrectly, a compromised invoice, or just want to put in a note and say, please investigate accordingly. So essentially the system here is, as I mentioned, trying to automate as much of the AP process and entry process and matching process as we can, but also trying to reserve the approver's time. So instead of having to approve 100 invoices a week, you're dealing with the 2 or 3 that actually matter, that the system is analyzing and saying, these ones don't look right or they are an issue, you need to review them, with everything else being seamlessly matched, validated, and pushed into the ERP system. Once the invoices have gone through that automation, matching, security, and validation process, essentially they're going to feed directly into Acumatica, but you have a full overview as a finance team. You can see which invoices are pending review, mark them as urgent and nudge them along. You'll have approvers that are out on site that never even see Acumatica. They may turn around and say, you know what, I've got my mobile application. I can see the risk score. I can approve, reject, skip, allocate it to someone else, document it or put comments in, or even upload supporting docs or see the invoice. Like, it's completely platform agnostic. But from a finance team perspective, you have complete visibility on, what's out there, what's been rejected, what's been put in holding pattern, what's been approved. And if it's been approved, it will sync directly into the bills and adjustments section. So if I just jump into here quickly and I show you in the bills and adjustments section, it's going to automatically sync in the AP bills. So if I have a look at one of these bills that's come through, you can see this bill's come through from Ozone Organics. It's showing me the trailed risk score, who approved it and trailed, and the approval date. It's even embedded the AP documents and supporting documentation directly into Acumatica, so it's all linked together. And if I actually drill down and have a look at this specific invoice, this is actually one that does relate to purchase orders and receipts. So you can see here all the header level information has been populated, the vendor information, the terms, the amounts, and all the line level details. So the marketing, descriptions, printing, advertising, as you saw on the line level in the invoice, as well as all the coding, the GL allocations, sub-accounts, projects. But most importantly, it's hyperlinked it into the original PO, receipt, and subcontract. So if I click on my purchase order, what you're going to see here is you're going to see Trailed has automatically closed out that PO. If I go to my PO history, here is your AP bill that's been automated and generated from Trailed and gone through our security matching and process. And it's closed out the purchase order as a result of being fulfilled. And there's our items that have been receipted. So there's your 3-way match and all of your associated documentation centralized in Acumatica before payment. I guess the last thing that I want to talk to quickly is payments. So essentially here, a lot of you will generate your payment files off the back of this. You'll go in, you'll prepare your payments, you'll run your EFT payment batch, or you'll run your check batch, and you'll get ready to make those payments. Essentially in Trailed, what will happen is that payment file will automatically feed into our payments report. So essentially here under our payments tab, it's going to show us whether it's a check run or it's a card payment or it's an EFT payment. And I can drill down here And as an executive responsible for the $500,000 pay run with many supplier payments in it, I can see the batch reference number that's been generated. I've got complete oversight. This is the $8,000 payment that's about to go out. And these are the suppliers that are about to be paid. It shows me the routing and banking information if it's based on EFT, or the check number if it's check related. I can see whether that supplier has been verified or not during onboarding. So we have a number of government-based checks and validation, as well as banking validation and tax validation, business registration detail validation to make sure that supplier is legitimate. We can also see each of the payment amounts we're about to pay these suppliers and the full 12 months of payment history. And it actually orders the highest risk payments right to the top. So you can see here, it's telling me that the actual $70 here is greater than the invoice value that's gone through Trailed in the automation process. So I can drill down, and I want to have a look at this and say, okay, these are all the invoices that make up that $70 payment to Keith Simmons Engineering as a part of that $8,000 batch run. And I can see the 5 invoices that have come through and been automated. They've been low risk, and I can even see the approval path as to whether they were matched, or approved in the workflow. But it's telling me here the value that's come through Trailed in terms of the automation is $65, and what's landed in, essentially in Acumatica is $70, and $70 is ended up in my payment file. So essentially someone's key to bill directly into Acumatica here without it going through Trailed's automation, security, and validation process. So these are the sorts of things that the system can pick up as it's reconciling your invoices to your payment batch and making sure you have visibility on what you're actually paying. So at this point, I have the ability to come down. I can put a comment in and say approved if I need to, or speak to the finance team. But as an executive, I'm going to approve this as a CFO. I've got complete confident visibility on what's happened in the business, and I can execute the payment directly from Trailed. So we can actually print and distribute the checks directly from Trailed, and if you're running checks, or we could actually distribute the EFT payments or ACH payments or wire transactions. So we have a payment processing gateway to do that. Awesome. So that's obviously most of the system, sort of from invoice in all the way through to payment out. If I just jump back to, I guess, the presentation slides, hopefully that's gone back now to the presentation. I'm not sure if I can see the presentation slides now. Bon, can you see them?
No.
It may have taken over them.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let me see if I might be able to bring up my ones. That's all right.
Yeah, maybe if you can share your screen and bring up.
Yep, no worries.
Perfect.
Give me 1 second. Hopefully, can you guys still see my screen okay?
We can see it.
Okay, so obviously we've been through the live product demonstration, but I guess now that you've seen the product and you understand from an automation and security point of view sort of what Trailed does, then you ask yourself the question about processing costs and savings, right? So what's the ROI on something like this? And the IRS did a study in combination with Forrester Consulting where they saw the cost and overhead, including salary, processing time, chasing people down for approvals, making sure things are matched to purchase orders, receipts, subcontracts, all that validation. Equated to approximately $26 per document in terms of overhead cost. And when you multiply that by 300 invoices, it's pretty substantial. It's about $70,000 in overhead cost in terms of processing. So if you think about this, if you use something like Trailed where we can automate it but also still make it secure, you're roughly saving at about $19 per document. So if you take account the saving by 300 invoices, you're looking at saving approximately $70,000. Now, even if you were conservative and you cut that in half and said, the cost, it was $10 savings per document, you're approximately talking about $40,000, $50,000 just for 300 invoices based on the studies that are out there. And then there's a question of what would your business do with that extra time and resource? How would you elevate your team to continue to help grow the business in other ways rather than manual input, manual validation, manual approvals, all that sort of stuff that I've shown you Trailed can deal with? And then there's the next question around the ever-evolving threats. There's a lot of business email compromise and supplier impersonation happening out there in the world at the moment. We saw a 22% increase year on year in the US from business email compromise. People impersonating your suppliers, sitting inside people's email addresses, putting in correspondence to mirror what it would look like and sound like, especially with the enhancement of AI around ChatGPT and things like that. Companies, not just in manufacturing, construction, distribution on Acumatica, but companies all around the world are being impacted by this, even tier one companies like Google and Facebook being tricked out of hundreds of millions millions of dollars through these sorts of schemes. So the idea around Trailed is, yes, we want to make it efficient and automated, but not at the cost of your bottom line. We want to create just enough friction to make sure that the things that are problematic or an issue are flagged at the right time for your business to have that visibility and control. And then these are what our customers have to say. As I said, we've got over 500 Acumatica customers using the Trail product across the world. Essentially, customers use it for different reasons. Some use it for, the systematic matching processes. Some use it for, they want deep multi-hierarchical created approval workflows. Essentially, these are some of our customers and what they have to say and their feedback about it. But I do love Gerald's one where he was able to get the system up and running and live in less than a week. And it actually stopped him from paying the same supplier invoice twice. So not only he had the security, it wasn't an ERP implementation. He could get it up and running really effectively and see the ROI quite quickly. I guess that's most of it from a presentation point of view, but I'd love to open it up for questions and answers. So if anyone's got any questions about what they've seen today, feel free to raise your hand or pop it in the chat and we can jump in and answer those. We're also happy to take you through a personalized one-on-one demo where we can load in your invoices in real time, show you exactly how the system automates and works out of the box, because it really does what it says it does, and we're happy to show you that. Perfect. I'll hand back to you, Andy, I guess from a Q&A perspective.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I know we're a bit over time already, so if you do have any questions, please leave it in the chat and we'll get back to you through email. Let me turn my camera back on as well.
There is one quick question.
Yes. Is
Trailed billed by invoice passed to the system or yearly like Acumatica?
Sorry, was that what was the question, Bonnie? I missed that.
Yeah, that's okay. So I can answer that. So it is billed through the answer company, and it shows up kind of as a line item on your renewal form. So
yep.
Because we're directly embedded and partners with Acumatica, it'll go through the answer company.
Yep. So it'll just be on your yearly annual invoice for Acumatica. And then, yeah, for those that stuck around, thank you guys. We'll be sending out the recording. We'll probably edit out the initial first parts where we had technical difficulties. But yeah, that was a great presentation. That's powerful stuff. And if you guys do have any questions about the system, either let myself or Felipe, your CSMs, know. And if you want to schedule a demo or if you want to find out more, yeah, reach out to myself and Felipe as well, and we can help get you guys in touch with Trailed to either schedule a demo or get you in contact with them directly for any questions that you may have for Trailed.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Andy and team, the Answer Company, for hosting this. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you've got any questions. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an awesome day.
Thank you guys for hosting the webinar. We appreciate that.
No problem. We'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Take care, guys.